Hey guys, welcome to my YouTube channel. Today we're going to talk music. We're going to talk about how to update a Spotify playlist using WhatsApp. I know that sounds a little bit insane, but this is exactly what we're going to do. I'm going to take you through every single steps. So before I show you what it looks like, let me give you a little bit of context. So this video is part of a series that I'm doing right now where I'm breaking down a client's project. So this client is a DJ, and you have already access to several videos regarding each different module that I had to build for this client. And in today's video, we're going to talk about Spotify. We're going to talk about the music part. So this is exciting. And I'm going to show you right now how it works. So basically, I'm going to go into my personal WhatsApp conversation that I'm having with an AI agent, my personal assistant, and I'm going to ask him to perform a task. So I could do an audio, but there's a lot of chances that with my accent, he probably won't pick up the title that I'm saying. So I'm just going to write a text instead, and that's definitely will do the job. So the request is the following. Can you add Beyonce Crazy in Love, Michael Jackson Rock My World in Sandrine's party playlist? Please remove Sean Paul tracks. So that's what I'm going to send to him. And now I'm going to show you a little bit about what I'm referring to. So this is my Spotify account, and I have different playlists. So here I have party playlist with Sean Paul, Get Busy, Temperature, right? 2 songs. Then I have the dinner playlist here with Birdman and another artist, right? Bobby Schmurder. And then I have a cocktail playlist with 2 other songs. So as you can see, I like hip hop. And the idea is to update directly this Spotify playlist from my WhatsApp. So in terms of flow, this agent should look for the song, the tracks in the Spotify database, come back to me with the different song that I asked for. So the song that need to be added, the song that need to be removed from the playlist, and ask me for a confirmation before doing it. And once he has done that, I will tell him to do it, and he should update directly the playlist that I just show you right now. So we're just going to wait a second that is getting back to me. When you use audio as a trigger, that's always tricky, especially when you do it in a different language, because sometimes it doesn't really get everything that you say, or the pronunciation is not perfect. So it can change some words, which make it really hard for this particular request. Because it's based on a query. This query basically is a transcription of what you ask him to do. So now what we have right now, we have the feedback from this agent that says tracks to add. So he gave me Crazy in Love, You Rock My World by Michael Jackson, and tracks to remove. So he did find those 2. And then I'm just going to confirm. Now I'm sending back OK. So please confirm with the OK to proceed with these changes. Now I'm going to say OK. And back to what we were doing, we should see this playlist be updated live by this little command that we just ran before. So once again, we have to give him a little bit of time in order to perform it, but trust AI and trust your personal assistant to be able to do this work immediately. So let's just wait a second. And now what we can see is Crazy in Love has been added, and You Rock My World has been added, but all the Sean Paul tracks that we had been removed. And that's exactly what we're going to cover today in this video. So to give you a little bit of context, what do we need to do this? Let's talk about the tech stack that we need. First of all, we will need make.com. So we will use it mostly for the trigger. We will need Relevance AI, which is the tool that will allow us to build personal assistant, but also sub agent and AI agent basically to run the task. We will need a Spotify account, that's for sure. We will need WhatsApp and Mate API. So if you haven't seen the previous video, Mate API is a third-party tool that will allow me to perform different tasks through WhatsApp. So it's a non-official WhatsApp API, because for this project, that just made more sense to use a tool like this rather than WhatsApp official API. And you will discover in next video why when I will explain to you the entire flow. If you have already your WhatsApp official API key, then you can use it as well. So that's going to be enough for this particular flow because you need to be able to receive either voice note or text messages. In this case, like I show you, text message was more than enough, and you'll be able to perform it. So let's talk about the overview and what does the flow look like. So first of all, we have a trigger. The trigger is the message coming from WhatsApp, right? Then this message, if it's a text, is directly transferred to the personal assistant. If it's an audio, we first need to convert it to text. And then we send it to the personal assistant. Then the personal assistant will delegate this task to the Spotify researcher. So every task first needs to go through the Spotify researcher because we need to find the tracks, right? Once we found the tracks, then the Spotify researcher will share the findings to the personal assistant that will send us a WhatsApp message to confirm. And then when we confirm, then the assistant will then make a request to the Spotify manager to perform the last part of the task, which is adding and removing the track from the playlist. Are you ready? So let's deep dive on how we can add and remove tracks to Spotify from WhatsApp. So what we're going to do first. First, we are going to talk about the tool, right? We are going to talk about the tool. And for this, I'm going to take you right here. So in terms of tool, this is the two main tools that we have to build today. Is one, Spotify researcher, and second, the Spotify manager. So before I go further, I have built two different tools because when I've tried to include everything in one tool, it wasn't as efficient as it could have been. So if you already watched the video about Airtable, it's definitely possible to do everything in one single tool. But for this one, I wanted to have something that I can be 100% sure is going to perform well. And I also wasn't sure about what will be the future regarding this agent for this particular project. So I wanted to have enough flexibility in case I need to add some more feature, right? This project is part of something much bigger for a DJ, and you never know what might be the need after that. So I just wanted to give myself enough room to be able to adjust and fine tune each agent in case we need to add some more tasks later. So that's the reason why I've divided by with using two tools and divided in two different agents. You can definitely do it in one. And right now I'm going to get back at it. But to give you a bit more context, so here's the breakdown of what happened, right? So I send the WhatsApp message here. Can you add Beyonce, Crazy in Love, Michael Jackson, Rock My World in Sandrine's party playlist? Please remove Sean Paul tracks. So that was my request. Now, in terms of tasks, the first thing that we can see is he went directly to check with the Airtable manager. So he gave him this instruction to retrieve and finding the playlist ID for party for Sandrine. And this is the first step because in my case, I have several playlists. So the first critical point is to identify the right playlist. So that's why this guy, the Airtable manager, was involved in the process, is in order to help me identify this piece of info. If you want to know more about the Airtable manager and how I built this, then you can directly watch the video about it. I'm trying to explaining everything so you have like a full understanding. Then what we can see is he went to see the Spotify researcher. And so when he went to see the Spotify researcher, that's the feedback that he got from me. So he provided the request. So he provided the playlist ID and then the instructions. Now what we can see is this guy perform the research and get back to the AI assistant with the different tracks, the tracks to add and the tracks to remove, right? And then what happened is the personal assistant tried to directly add the tracks to the playlist. And now we can see the request has been followed up to him. But here, there is a specific checkpoint that I've implemented will force the agent to get back to me on WhatsApp to ask for approval before he can do it. And so he hasn't been able to perform this task directly. So he tried to shortcut the authorization. And in this case, this agent already told him, I can't right now because the status is no, it's not confirmed. So you have to first get the confirmation. And that's when I received the WhatsApp message with the different titles and asking me to confirm, right? And the idea was just for me to reply, okay. If I reply, okay, that's enough for him to take action. And that's what I did. I replied, okay. And then what happened is he has been able now to perform the task. So now we can see here, it's confirmed. Where before, when he tried to do the same task, it was no. And so that's the little trick that I've been implementing in order to make sure that he always goes through me and not going on his own agenda. And I wanted to control everything. So now that I've confirmed, he has been able to perform directly the task and get back to me with the recap of what he has done. And now I'm going to show you a bit more what has been done with the tool. So you'll be able as well to build this kind of tool. So let's start with the Spotify researcher tool. So how do we go about this? We will need different elements. So we will need to provide a request, which is what do we want to do? Playlist ID. And this is where we start to need to understand a little bit more about the Spotify API, right? So here is your Spotify playlist ID in the URL. In my case, I added a bit more complexity to this case because the DJ that I'm doing this for is a guy that can have different sets every week. And he also performs in weddings. And for the weddings, for example, you need 3 playlists per wedding. One for the cocktail, one for the dinner, one for the party. And for him, if he has 3 weddings in a week, that's 9 playlists that he needs to update based on the client desire, which start to be a lot of work, right? So in this case, that's why we have this Airtable database in order to add the different playlists. So we can see right now, we have the cocktail playlist ID right here. We have the party playlist ID, the dinner playlist ID with the URL. So let's just make everything easy to access for him. But so it's definitely possible to do it with multiple playlists. I'm not really going to go deep into the Airtable phase right now because there's already one video covering it all, but I'm mostly going to focus on the Spotify part. So let's assume that you just have one ID and that's going to make it much easier. So now that we know what's the playlist ID, we also need to create an app in Spotify. So when you go to Spotify, you have the developer part at the bottom, and you need to create an account and create an app. And when you create an app, you can name it. So for example, I'm going to name it test, add a description, test, website, everything you need. Then you need to select the web API. So that's how we're going to use it in this case. I understand. Then you can save. Now I can put this, right? Now we're going to save. And right now I can go to settings, and here I have 2 elements, very, very important, my client ID and my client secret. So those 2 are key elements that we will need in order to perform this task. So when you have created your Spotify account, you need to keep the client ID and the client secret and copy paste them directly in your Relevance AI. So you have the settings right here, and you need to add a key, and then you can add the Spotify client ID and the Spotify client secret. So that's where you need to add them because we will need those elements in order to perform API request. So for the researcher and the researcher tool, this is what we need to do. First, we get inputs, right? Request playlist ID. Then we need to authenticate by using the get access token Spotify, right? So this is a specific API endpoint. So all of this is some element that you can find in the documentation. So if you go to web API, get started, it kind of show you a little bit a request access token, right? So it does explain to you how it works. So for example, you can see your client credential, client ID. So you can see how it works basically. And this is basically what we need to replicate in our Relevance AI. So first of all, we need to generate a token, right? So we need to add the parameters in the header, which is those two, content type, application. And then we need to add the body. So the body is this body that we just saw right now. So this is what we need to add, the grant type. And there's different grant types, so you can learn about all of them, client credential, for example, right here. So you can learn about it. Right now, I'm just going to go a bit faster on this, but basically this is the body that we need to implement in our request. And what we can see is like grant type is client credentials, right? And client ID. And that's what we can see. And then we can see the way it's built right now. And if you remember well, we already had the client ID and we already had the client secret from the app that we have created. And so that's what we're going to use. So here, I'm copy pasting this in the body, right? And then I'm adding the variables right here that I've just saved before in order to build this entire URL, right? Once it's done, that gives me a temporary access token because each token right now, they're available for 1 hour, which means that after 1 hour, they expired. But it's good because with this method, it's pretty simple to perform a research. And the thing that I do is I just regenerate a token every time I have a new request. So I don't have to worry about knowing if the token's already expired or not. So we just run this. When I have run this, I receive a token and I'm using the token then to perform the API call. So this API call needs the token in order to identify that I am logged in. So this second request needs to have this token that has been generated here in order to work. And so in this case, the first thing that I want to do is get all the tracks from the playlist. And in order to perform this request, I need to add the URL right here with the playlist ID and the tracks. So this can be found here in the documentation. So if you go to playlist, for example, you have a get playlist item, and you will see the URL that needs to be built is this one, right? So it's a get playlist ID. And here you have it in full. And that's exactly what I did. And then you have a little example about what it looks like. So that's the request that I'm performing right now with the authorization token. And then I'm getting all the playlist song out of it, right? That's what I'm going to get out of this request. And then I'm going to work with the result of this playlist. So how I'm going to work with it? I'm going to use the OpenAI model in order to first clean a little bit this entire list and providing me only the song that needs to be added or removed from the playlist. So here I explain how I want it to be performed. So the first thing is like the input data. So we have the playlist song response body, which is just what we had before right now. And we have the request. And the idea is to match one against the other in order to retrieve the song that needs to be removed and just add the song that are not in the playlist, right? And then I just explain the output format that is expected. So one, I want an array here of tracks that needs to be deleted. And I want another array of tracks that needs to be added. I specifically mentioned to this model in the prompt that actually for tracks that needs to be added, if I provide the artist, that's even better to add the artist when we're going to perform the research. Because sometimes you have a track title that is actually common to several artists. And in our case, we just try to get the right result the first time. So adding a little bit more info in the query that we're going to perform is always better in order to retrieve the right track. But when you look at the tracks to delete, because they were already in the playlist, then we don't need to do that because we already have a specific part of the result that I'm going to show you called the URI that's going to allow us to identify those tracks, right? So now this is what I'm going to get as a result. So I just want to make sure it returns me only the JSON output with no extra character or Markdown or anything like that in this format. So I have a list of tracks that needs to be deleted and a list of tracks that needs to be added, right? So once it's done, I'm going to, maybe I'm just gonna run the request. I think it's gonna be easier. Add by Beyonce and playlist ID. Let me just take this playlist ID right here and let's just do this. There you go. And now I'm gonna run the tool. So this setup was like a little bit technical because we have to play with a lot of formats. So I think just showing is going to be even better, just to make it clearer. So here, when we have done this request, here we have the access token. So that's what we need, and we need a token type. And that's the two elements that we're using in the request just underneath. So first of all, the token type, which is going to be bearer. We leave a space, and then we add the access token right here. Okay. Now, this is the song that we have in the playlist. So we don't need really to go through that because that's what we have in the place. And that's why we ask him to format and to get us this type of output. And that's what he has done with the request that I made, which was Crazy in Love. And he added Beyonce as well as the artist. So that's good. So then that will maximize the chances for us to find those tracks. So now our goal in the next step is to format the different tracks that we retrieved and to be able to use them later on. So I'm just going to show directly the output expected in order to explain it. So this is the output that we expect. We want first an array of the tracks that needs to be deleted, and we want an array of the tracks that needs to be added, right? At this stage, we haven't performed the research yet about the tracks that needs to be added. Those tracks, they're not in our Spotify playlist right now. We need to search for them. However, the tracks that we need to delete, they're already there. We already know they exist and we already have the data. This entire step is to explain that based on the tracks that you retrieved previously, so tracks to delete and tracks to add, you need to format them differently. So the tracks that needs to be deleted, you can already retrieve all the data that we have about them because they are already in the playlist. So give me the track URL, give me the track name, give me the artist name, give me the album name, and give me the URI, the ID of the specific tracks within Spotify. For the tracks that I need to add, I need you to help me to perform a search. But in order to perform a search, when you're looking at Spotify documentation, if you want to do a search, here you can see there's a formatting that has been applied to it. Look, there is no space. There's this sign instead that replaces the empty space. And this is exactly what we need to do for every single song that we want to search. So basically, here, this is what we're doing. We're taking the song that we had in the previous list and we're adding this specific formatting. And the result that we expect is this double array where one is formatted this way and the other one is formatted to be ready to be searched. And so this entire prompt here explains this. So the input that we have, the processing logic. So for the tracks to delete, this is what you need to mention. And for the tracks to add, this is what you need to do to replace all the space with this sign. And this is the output that we are going to have. And an important note is about the formatting. Every time you request a JSON through OpenAI, you often have this sign, this format coming with it, which makes the JSON completely invalid. So I just tell him to make sure it doesn't include this in the result, otherwise we can't use it. And so this is the transformation that's been performed right here. So we can see I definitely have the tracks that needs to be added in this format with like the percentage and the number 20 right here. Now, the next step. The next step is to actually break down. So I just want to break down this array, this object of arrays that I received before, because here I had the tracks to delete, the tracks to add. Here I just want to work with the tracks that needs to be added. So I'm just telling him, no, this is what you receive. I just want you to provide me an array of the tracks that needs to be searched. So this is what I have right now. So I have this array with all the elements that needs to be searched. And after that, I will be ready to make an API call in order to search for this track. So one thing, I'm just going to explain it to you how to do it with one track, and then I'll show you how I can do it with multiple tracks. So the first thing is we need to set up the API. So here it's a get method. So that's what we just saw before. So we have the search here and the queue for the query parameter. And we need to add here. So if you look at documentation, this is what the request looks like. So you have the search, and here you have the queue, and here, this is the title that you need to search for. We also need to add parameters. So for example, the type and the market. So the market could be ES if you're in Spain, or FR if you're in France, or US if you're in the US. And the type is like, are you looking for an album, a track, an artist? In our case, we're looking for tracks. We just want tracks. We don't want the whole album. There's some possibility to make it happen with a whole album, but this is not interesting for us because we just want specific songs. So in this case, we have, first of all, to put here the tracks ID, tracks URL. So I'm going to cover this just in a minute. And we put the authorization right here. So this is the same thing that we did previously once we have generated the token. And we had, and that's all we had basically, because we're just looking for this song, and we left it empty for the market and for the search type. So because here I'm going to receive an array of multiple search terms, I want to perform a loop iteration through each of them. So how we do this? Here you have an option, and you can add this list to loop tool step over. And so that's what you do. You add this element, and then you come and mention the array that we have generated here as a variable, right? Once you have done it, you can, in your URL here, add the parameter for each item. So the for each item is a parameter that will appear because we have created this list to loop tool step over. So it should be right here. If you look at the bottom, when you use this specific condition, then you can loop through each items, right? And so that's what we need to do here. So that means that it's going to go through each individual request in order to find each songs that we mentioned. Now, in the body, we will have a list of all the tracks that has been searched. And what we need to do now is to return the matching tracks. So based on this research, we are matching it against the request that we made. And so we ask him now to format the answer the same way he has formatted the tracks to delete. So now we're going to have the exact same information for the tracks that needs to be added. So the track URL, the track artist, album, and URI. And this is the formatting that we expect, because with this, we'll be able to add them through our playlist, but also I will be able to confirm if this is the right song that I want to add to my playlist or not. Then this is what we receive. So we receive this new object of arrays formatted the way I want it to, because now I can check if that's the right track to add. And this is what needs to be sent to me as a confirmation. Now, let's check it out how to build the other tool. So now that we just saw how to build the first tool, we need to build the other tool, the one that will allow us to add tracks and remove tracks from the Spotify playlist. Right, so what do we need? First of all, for this tool, we need the playlist ID. Obviously, that's what we need. We need the tracks, so the formatted output that we had from the previous tool. And we need the confirmation. And this is where the trick comes into place. The confirmation is a status that will allow the agent to perform the task or not. And in case it does it without my approval, it won't be able to reach the API call because it's under the condition that confirmation is confirmed. Because it's under the condition that the confirmation status is confirmed. So here, this is just the text. It has no as a default value and confirm when I said, okay, you can add it, you can perform the task. So what we have in here in terms of steps, first of all, we need to format the tracks that we need to add. Then we need to format the tracks that we need to delete. Then we need to request a token to perform this request, because right now we need to authenticate even more, because what we had used for the first tool will not work for this tool. So we need a new authentication, right? So Spotify has a different way of helping you use the API. First of all, you have a token that you need to generate that we've been doing before, which allow us to do some basic task like looking for a song in the library or that stuff. But as soon as you want to do something a bit more personal, like updating a playlist or something like this doesn't work anymore. We need to authenticate properly. And that's the reason why in this particular API, we will need to change the method of authentication, right? So we will cover that. And then we will be able, when we have the new token, to perform two requests, one to add tracks to the playlist, the other one to remove tracks from the playlist. Okay? So let's deep dive. So the first thing that we want to do is to format the tracks that we need to add. So here you can see I'm using a conditions, and the condition is first. Here the confirmation has to be confirmed. The status has to be confirmed. So if I haven't confirmed and it's trying to perform this task, it won't be able to do this. So if it's not well formatted, the API request will not work. So that's what I just want to make sure that you always come back to me to approve a task. And so in this case, I don't even need to use like the integrated module about asking for approval in Relevance AI, because I just do it myself. So everything is run in autopilot, and I'm forcing it to ask me for confirmation. So first part here, add a track. So we have the objective. I'm just going to show the output, the example, because I think that's going to speak a lot more than just reading all the text. But basically, that's what you're going to receive right here. So that's what you have. And then I want you to return to me only the tracks that needs to be added within an array, right? That's what I want. So it's an array. So it's this object with the URIs, and you return each of them. So basically, extract all this part, make them in an array, and return it to me. Once it's done, I'm going to ask him to do the same thing with the tracks that needs to be deleted. Once again, here I have the confirm status that need to be updated. Otherwise, that will not work. So then I need to ask him to format the tracks that needs to be deleted. So slightly different. Otherwise, it would not be funny, right? So for the tracks that needs to be deleted, this is what we need. So let me check it out right here. So we go to playlist and remove playlist item. And here you can see the way it's built. So before we just add an array of URIs that we could use, but for the tracks that needs to be deleted, this is what it looks like. So we actually need to separate them in dedicated objects, right? A key with the string, which is the URI, but this is the format that it needs to have, where when you needed to add the item to the playlist, we just needed here to have them in a string. So we need to adapt as well the format on how we're going to receive the tracks that needs to be deleted. So let's go. And we have the input. So tracks that needs to be added, this is what it looks like. And tracks that needs to be deleted, and this is what it looks like, right? Now, the expected output is this format. That's what we want, which means that this track needs to be here and the other one underneath as a separate object within an array. And so basically this entire prompt is just to explain to the agent that this is what we need. And this is the result that we get. So once we have this, that we will be ready to make the last API call in order to remove them. So now let's go to the token and let's talk about this new token. What is this? Why do we need this new token? Well, for security reasons. So now we're using a different method. So in order to perform this type of task, and you will see here, we need to add, we have a different authorization scope here. We can see this is slightly different. This one requires a bit more. And at the very beginning, if you pay attention to client credentials, so that's what we've been using. So this is where it's written. This flow does not include authorization. Only endpoints that do not access user information can be accessed. So this to perform a search in the entire Spotify database. It's perfect. That works. Now, if you want to update the playlist, this doesn't work. So that's the reason why we are going to use the authorization code flow. So this other method of authentication will allow us to perform this request. So this is suitable for long-running application where the users grants permission only once. Sounds perfect. So how do we build this? So basically, long story short, but we need to, first of all, perform a request in the browser in order to obtain the authorization code, right? So in order to do it, you can either use like a make, or you can use Relevance AI to perform the API request, or you can literally copy paste this URL here, and we will just replace the different element that we need. So for example, authorized response type code. So we keep it, the client ID. So we need to replace this with the client ID that we have. So we are going to find this in the dashboard. So I'm going here, and the client ID is right here. So I'm going to copy this. So I'm going to copy the client ID, replace it here. For the URL, so you can use the local host. So this URL right here, that will allow you to directly authenticate from the browser without having to go to a different page and to retrieve the code. And the scope. So for the scope, so we have the callback here. For the scopes is user read private and user read email. So let me just double check. What do we need to put for the scope? All right. So that's that should be all right now. So we're just going to do this. I'm just going to get rid of the state. We don't need that. And now if I perform this, now this is where he asks me to agree. So I'm going to say yes. And now I have the code. So the code that I need is right here in the URL. So I can extract this. So I'm going to literally extract the entire URL like this. So I'm going to close this, put it here, and basically just the code that I need, which is this part. Yep. So that's just the code that I need. And with this code, I will be able to perform the next step. So now, what do we need to do next is to request an access token, right? So in order to have this access token, we have details of the grant type. So must contain the authorization code. So that's what we have here in the request token. So what does it mean? It means that when we perform the research right here, this is the code that I just generated. So I save it again as a variable right here, so I can use it. And for the basic authentication here, I need to follow this. So my code is I'm gonna leave it here. But basically, here you need to provide an encoding of the client ID client secret base 64. So how does it work? I'm gonna encode 64. So I'm going to use this tool. And for example, right now, what you need to do is going to your dashboard, click, copy the client ID, right? Then you add the column. Now you're going to check the secret right here, put it there. And now you want to encode this. And now you have it. So that's what you need. And this is what you will save. Once again, here, I'm going to save it as an environment variable. And I'm going to save it here and build like the authorization with basic space and then add this code that will be saved. And I just had this in the body. And now I can literally make the API call. And once I make this API call, I'm going to have a token that's going to last longer. So every time I make this request, that will allow me to generate a new token that will allow me to perform the request afterwards. So here we can perform the add track API request because we are using the answer from the previous API call as an authorization method, right? And we can directly add the tracks to the playlist. So this is coming from the formatting that we had before, right? And we can do the exact same thing with the tracks that needs to be removed. So this is the exact same thing. Yeah? So the most important is just understanding that we authenticate here with what we have done previously, which was generating a dedicated refresh token from the code that we had to get through the browser and give our authorization, right? And then as an answer, I just want the API status of both API calls. So if the tracks have been added as expected, then it is going to return 200. If the tracks has been removed as expected, it's going to return 200. And based on the code 200, I'm fine because then I will have feedback that will tell me that everything went as expected. So, which is good. And that's it for the tools. So now that we cover the tools, we have done the hardest part of it, which is understanding how we build those two tools. Because then the next step is pretty simple. It's about adding those tools to two different agents. So first thing, for each tool, you need to provide a little description about what they're about. So how to delete tracks in the playlist. So it's very simple and no need to overcomplicate it. But once I have those two tools, then I'm going to create two agents, right? So one agent will be my Spotify researcher. So it's already been created. So this is this guy, right? So this Spotify researcher right now, his role is to search music title, get info from Spotify playlist. That's it. That's all he has to do. So now we're going to provide him with the core instructions of what we expect from it. So the first thing is the objective is to perform accurate track research. So we give him the context, searching for specific song in Spotify playlist, the tools. So we give him access to the Spotify researcher tool and the SOP. So what we expect from him, what are the order of the steps that he needs to take. So first you receive a request, then confirm that the request is about Spotify, then retrieve the playlist ID, then perform the track research. And then if there's a missing track that you need to get back to the personal assistant to let him know and return the search result if you found something. So once again, this is what we need from it. And the key point, verify that all retrieved tracks match the request, no assumptions, and the response format in the structure way that we expected. And that's it. That's all we have to provide him. So then I'm going to add him a tool. So the tool is the Spotify researcher tool. So everything is on auto run. So I do not put the approval required because the thing with approval required is I don't have it through WhatsApp. And that's the issue for me. I wanted everything to run smoothly and just be based on WhatsApp confirmation. So if I activate this part, then it's almost like a human needs to jump in, which is what this feature is about. But in my case, it's like I want to approve, but I don't want to jump in. I just want to do it from my WhatsApp. So I leave everything in auto run and force the confirmation by using the specific status of the request. And that's it for the Spotify researcher agent. Okay. And now we are going to check the other guy, the Spotify, what is it? Spotify manager. So this guy has the power to add and remove tracks from the playlist. So once again, core instruction. What is his objective? The context. So adding track to Spotify, removing tracks from Spotify. The tool. So he has access to the Spotify manager tool. SOP. So it's kind of the same that we did before, except that I've updated the entire prompt in order to make it fit for the specific task, which is adding and removing tracks from the Spotify playlist, right? And for the tool, so for this guy, it just has the Spotify manager tool. So we just saw how to build it. And this is as well on auto run because everything will just be forced to be done through WhatsApp and nothing else. So as soon as they have the confirmation, they can literally do it by themselves, right? So we have covered how to build the tool. We took a look at the Spotify documentation. We have created the 2 sub-agents. And now the last one missing is the personal assistant. So for the personal assistant, if you've watched already the previous video, then you already know that this guy has a lot on his plate, but we're going to keep adding it. So this is the personal assistant that has been created. So his role is to assist and manage tasks efficiently. And we're going to provide core instructions. So in your case, you might not have different tasks. So you can just reduce the entire scope and use one agent if you want to. In my case, because I'm not sure about what's coming in the future, I'd rather have 2 separate agents that will be able to evolve independently in case there are different tasks that needs to be performed that I'm not aware of today. So here for the core instruction of the personal assistant, so we define first of all his role, who is Harris. So he's working for Harris. So he's Harris' personal assistant. We're giving him tools. So the only tools that we're interested in right now is those ones. So they are the 2 sub-agents that we just created and the WhatsApp communication tool in order to get back to me every time something needs to be approved. Or the other tool, there are addition tools that are provided for different reasons, different tasks. And I will cover this in a different video so you can see, you can have an idea of the entire project. Right now, I was just breaking down the Spotify part that I thought was very interesting. And then you define a little bit what's important to be done. So here, this is what we've been doing, always making sure that you need to get back to me in a specific language. So in this case, it can be French. So it has been built for a French client using the WhatsApp tool. And then we go through the SOP. So the personal assistant has his own SOP. And we also define the sub-agent responsibilities that he has access to, what they're good at, what they're here for. The process of delegating tasks to sub-agent, communication of the results, and what happened if you're missing some info. So always get back to me through WhatsApp in order to confirm or not. The key points to remember, and then I like to break down the different tasks, especially like this guy has a lot on his plate, like I explained before. So I just want to make sure every task that he needs to perform, he understands clearly what he has to do. So for the Spotify one here, I have created an entire section to explain what was expected. So search song, adding or removing song in a playlist, right? And determine like the playlist type. So the playlist ID that I was talking about is something that you can already implement yourself within the agent. So you don't need to add an empty space. In my case, it was an empty space because if you remember well, I show you at the very beginning that I had different playlists. So the idea was to always ask the Airtable manager to retrieve this specific ID in order for him to know which playlist we were talking about. But if you just have one playlist, then in this case, it's going to be a lot easier. It's going to be a lot easier because you can already use it as a parameter. So for example, here, when you configure it like the template, you can add the playlist. And in the playlist, you just copy paste your playlist ID, which is going to always be the same across all the tasks that you're going to do with Spotify. So that's the little tip if you want to do it in more complex way. So this is probably how you would do. So adding a different agent as well, the Airtable manager. But make sure to watch the video about the entire project, so that will make more sense about how everything's articulated right now. I think the Spotify part was already big enough. And so this is why it's mentioned as well here, like to delegate to the Airtable manager in order to retrieve this playlist ID, wait for the answer, and then delegate to the Spotify researcher. So in your case, if you have just one playlist ID, you would not need this part. You would just focus on this, which is delegate to the Spotify researcher as soon as you receive a request to look for a song or add a song, right? Then you need to validate the changes with Aris. So you get back to him using WhatsApp, send a message, right? And if you have a confirmation like, okay, then you go to step 7. And step 7 is execute the changes. And to execute the changes, you can delegate the task to the Spotify manager. And you make sure to provide him with the playlist ID. So in your case, if you have just one playlist ID, you will not need to provide it. It will be already done. But the most important is to provide the formatted list of tracks that needs to be added or removed in the particular format that the researcher has provided to us, right? Then we wait for confirmations, and then you report back as soon as the task is done. So we make sure everything is done as we want it to, right? Then in the key points to remember, in this case, because I have several playlists, Airtable manager need to retrieve the playlist ID. You can't make it up. So that was a very important tab because it was very hard to get this point right at the very beginning. I had to work on it a lot, but eventually by mentioning it a lot again, you get it right. And that's it. Then the end of it is mostly to the important notes to always speak in the language that's been defined. Don't do final action without a confirmation, all that stuff. So that's the standard that I need to put in every prompt in order to make sure that the agent doesn't go like completely freestyle. And just to give a bit more idea, the configuration of the template. So here are the variables that I need to always fill up. So I've created several. One is Aris WhatsApp number here. So this is the number that he needs to always communicate with. So I can update the number here. It's going to change the entire, it's going to update the entire core instruction, for example. And the language. So this has been built for French client. Right now I'm showing it in English, but by just changing the language here, that I can have it in different languages. So that's great. And the flow builder, I think I didn't cover this part, but for the flow builder, so for the task related to Spotify right here, that's what we do. So first, if the task is, the first part, is based on the request you receive, identify the agent that you need to delegate this task to. So if the request is related to Spotify, then this is what you have to do, right? So you have to first identify what playlist are we talking about. So this is something that I need to always do as well in my audio. It's like on my text is making sure I tell him also what playlist do I want to update, because if I don't, this is just going to get back to me about I had your request, but what playlist are we talking about? So it's just about retraining the way you work with your AI agent to make sure that every time you ask a request, you give him everything that he needs so he can perform the task. So that's what it's about here. And then you need to pass the request to the Airtable manager in order to find the playlist ID. So I'm not memorizing the playlist ID. I'm just saying, look for this guy's playlist. And that's what the Airtable manager comes in, is to jump on what I just said and look for the dedicated playlist ID in the database. And then it's delegated the task to the Spotify researcher. And here I can see there's a mistake. It's important to provide the original request to the Spotify researcher and not manager. There you go. All right. So didn't prevent from working correctly, but still better like this. Then we wait for the output. Once you have the output, make sure that you save it because that's going to be crucial for the next step. And then you send the confirmation to Iris using his WhatsApp number in the language that I asked him to do. Then you wait for his confirmation, right? And this is where I put some markdowns on the text to make sure that you remember that the output of the Spotify researcher is the input of the Spotify manager, because we need this JSON to be the input for the Spotify manager. Otherwise, the task will not be able to be performed. And then we just delegate this task to the Spotify manager, wait for the response, and then get back to Iris in order to tell him everything has been done. So, so that's why you guys have been able to see. So that was quite intense. I just want to cover the final part, which is the trigger. I haven't talked about the trigger, but for the trigger, I'm using make. So this is where make comes into the place. Is we have here a webhook, and we have here like the agent ID, conversation ID. So that will allow us to always submit the request to the same agent, to the same conversation. So you can find those two pieces of info right here in the URL of your conversation with your personal assistant. So this is the agent ID right here. There is agent ID right now. So the one that starts with a B4. So it's right here. This is the agent ID, right? And the last ID is the conversation ID. That's the two elements that we need to fill up this WhatsApp trigger. So based on the webhook, and the webhook that is coming from Mate API. So you can set up the webhook directly here. So you can copy paste the URL from make to here, and you get all the messages. You add a filter in order to filter your phone ID. So phone ID, once again, that's what you have in Mate API here. So you're able to find it when you receive the webhook. The conversation name, so that's what you have with the WhatsApp conversation name right here. So that's how I filter every message that comes through, so I know which one are actually for this workflow. Set up those two variables, agent ID, conversation ID. Then I have a router with 3 different scenarios. One for text messages. So message type is text, so that's what you get from the webhook. Here I have message type is PTT, so which means the voice note that you get as well from the webhook. And the last one is for audio. So if, for example, I record something, it's not live, I'm not in WhatsApp conversation, I'm just making recording an audio, then I have this document, this file. I can use also this file right here because that's going to be identified as an audio, and that will allow me to perform the exact same request. So when it's a text, simple, you just create a HTTP authenticated request right here. You add the URL of your agent. So this is part of the trigger, literally. So when you have your agent, so this is my personal assistant here. All right. My personal assistant, let's go. Here, I have the API, right? And so that's the URL that you have at this moment. That's the API. Then here you can generate the authorization token, and you can perform this API call right here, right? So I just added the credential. So you have everything that you need, and the parameters name and the key that you need to add here, right? Then you add in the body the content, so the message. So that's directly coming from WhatsApp. The agent ID, which is the variable that we saved, the conversation ID that we saved as well. So that allow me as well to edit it like quickly. And this request will be sent as a text directly to the right agent. If I have a file, a voice note or a file, then the first thing that I need to do is first to download this file, right? So first I need to download it. Once I have downloaded, I made a request through OpenAI in order to transcribe this file into a text. So the first thing that is important to do is to make sure that you, for every voice note, that you change the format that is OGG right here, right? So you have all the format that are expressed here. So OGG is one of them. So by saving this under this name, it will understand the element. It will be able to create a transcription of it, right? And then you can make the API request towards your agent by forwarding the text that you receive from the OpenAI, right? And for the document, this is the exact same flow. This is the exact same thing. The only difference here is we're just going to change the format because that's going to be M4A. So that's the type of format that I'm getting from the WhatsApp. So I just want to make sure to update it. And then it will be able as well to perform the exact same thing. And this is what's going to trigger my agent to perform the task that we just saw, right? So we just covered the implementation. Now let's talk a little bit about the budget. So we had different tools. So we had Make, Relevance AI, Spotify, or WhatsApp, and Made API. So for Make, you have a free plan. So you will be able to use it. You have Relevance AI that's also a free plan up to 100 credits a day. Spotify free. If you have the premium version, that's good, but it doesn't change anything for what we just did. WhatsApp for free, and Made API, which is the connector that I'm using. That is actually a paid tool. So I'm using this one once again because it was handy to use in this complex case, because this is just one part of something a lot bigger that I will show you very soon. And I just see that I didn't show you what was the implementation of Made API, but I have already explained it in the Airtable video. So maybe watch it if you want a bit more details about it. I'm just going to try to keep this one not too long. And yeah, that's it. So takeaways from this is just remember that for Spotify, you need two types of token. So you can use the basic token, which is going to be just the client ID colon and the client secret, just to perform basic tasks like search a song in the library or that stuff. Everything that is personal that needs to edit a specific playlist, you should use instead a different method. So the authorization code, generate this code and make sure that this code, and make sure you change the code for like a longer token in order to perform this task again and again. And yeah, if you want to know more about what we do, so feel free to get in touch, info@runautopilot.co. If you have any suggestion about content, about automation, if there's something that you can do better than what I explained now and you want to share it, please do so I can learn, I can progress as well. If you have any question, like feel free to get in touch, drop a comment, and let me know if I can help you, and see you next time.